told them we have a permit. The First Amendment is our permit.
Jeffrey, what is your response to people who say that these arrests have nothing to do with your political beliefs and that you're simply being arrested for breaking the bullhorn law?
There were numerous occasions where I was arrested and threatened with arrest for speaking out without a bullhorn. During the Republican convention, on 2 occasions, I was threatened with arrest. And I didn't even have a bullhorn. Just for speaking with my natural voice, they threatened me. Because it has nothing to do with the bullhorn. It has to do with the message. The New York Police Department, they use these unconstitutional permit requirements as a pretext for political repression. Why are the police so aggressively enforcing this technicality? Whether or not one has a permit or not really has no effect on the community. It doesn't harm the public in any way whether or not you have a permit. If the volume is reasonable, what difference does it make if you have a permit?
Have you ever applied for the permit?
In a supposedly free society, why should you have to apply for permission to speak in a park and to reasonably amplify that speech so that people can hear it? The First Amendment protects our right to speak and to effective speech. The First Amendment is the permit. But in the beginning of the coalition, we actually applied for a permit on 3 separate occasions. And what do you think happened when the No Police Day Coalition marched into the 13th precinct and asked for a permit so they could protest the police and accuse the police of being a political Gestapo and that the police were repressing people's First Amendment rights? The permit was denied on every occasion. Recently, this fall, a friend and associate of mine, Eric Rossi, he went to the 13th precinct to apply for a police sound permit. He was thrown out of the precinct by the new commanding officer, Deputy Inspector Michael McEnroy. That's what the police department thinks about free speech. And I'm not going to encourage anyone to apply to the police for permission that they don't have the authority to grant. We already have the right to speak, and we intend on exercising it.
How you doing? How come? Cops out of New York! Cops out of New York! Freedom of speech! Freedom of speech!
I don't want to go ahead just because it's advice.
Freedom of speech!
It's illegal to itself. It's kind of ridiculous. Way it is, right?
Apparently, this officer is aware of the fact that the bullhorn law is ridiculous and serves no public interest.
Dream at the top of the wall. Not allowed to use the megaphone.
Is that okay?
No electronic. That's how backwards
So then it's not about sound. It's about attacking our ability. It's about our ability to get our message.
You can say whatever you want.
Right to say it, right to hear it. That means whatever the means of communication are, that's protected too. Did you know that the Supreme Court said, New York, the loudspeaker today is indispensable for effective public speech?
As the popularity of the speakouts and of the group's message grows in the New York community, so does the intervention by the New York Police Department, who seems determined to put a stop to the assemblies despite their constitutionally protected status. The intolerance and brutality of the New York Police Department only seems to escalate.
Government is the most hostile force against democracy. The most hostile.
The New York Police Department relies on this unconstitutional permit ordinance as a pretense to arrest political speakers like Jeffrey. Robert Morgenthau, the New York County District Attorney, and the NYPD have trumped up numerous false charges. Jeffrey has always maintained that he is innocent of these charges, and the most compelling evidence of this can be found in this footage. Upon first examination, there may seem to be nothing out of the ordinary. When you compare the events in this video to details of the police report from Jeffrey's arrest that day, a much different picture emerges. Jeffrey was charged with a long list of offenses, including inciting to riot, which is defined as urging 10 or more people to engage in tumultuous and violent conduct. Let's look again at the first frames of our footage. It is clear from these images that from the moment he is approached by Deputy Inspector Paul McCormick, commanding officer of the 13th Precinct, Jeffrey is calm and cooperative. The supporting deposition of arresting officer Paul Dunn says that at the time of Jeffrey's arrest, Jeffrey stated in substance to a crowd of approximately 75 people such things as, "This is our park," and "Get the cops." The report further states that this caused more than 10 individuals to begin pushing and shoving police officers, but the video evidence clearly shows that none of these things happened. Jeffrey is not making incendiary statements to the crowd, and people are not shoving the police. Jeffrey was charged with resisting arrest and 2 counts of disorderly conduct, which is defined as engaging in violent, tumultuous, and threatening behavior. Resisting arrest is defined as attempting to prevent a police officer from making an authorized arrest. At this frame, Jeffrey's hands are still free, and he is calm and cooperative. At this frame, the officer on the right of the screen begins to handcuff Jeffrey, and again Jeffrey offers them no resistance. The supporting deposition of Officer Paul Dunn tells a much different story than the one we are seeing on our screen. Officer Dunn's report claims that at the time of the arrest, Jeffrey flailed his arms, tried to turn away his body, and refused to put his arms behind his back. Once again, our video evidence shows that none of these things really happened, and none of these statements in Officer Dunn's report are true. With so many eyewitnesses and so many cameras focused on the events of that day, one has to wonder why Officer Dunn would make such brazen misrepresentations in his report regarding the events that happened during Jeffrey's arrest. Making false statements in an arrest report is punishable as a Class A misdemeanor. With such a preponderance of evidence to contradict the events detailed in Officer Dunn's report, it would seem by making those statements, he puts himself in harm's way of prosecution. One has to wonder if Officer Dunn has some personal vendetta against Jeffrey, that he'll be willing to risk his own freedom and career record to wrongfully accuse Jeffrey of crimes he did not commit. Or could it be that Officer Dunn is only following orders from higher up, knowing that in doing so, he would likely be protected by the same higher-ups should the truth of his perjury come to light? The NYPD war on the First Amendment and right of free speech is not limited to Jeffrey Blank. They have their sights set on anyone who is critical of the government and its policies.